And wanted to play one more clip featuring someone who I believe you both probably know, at least know of, but maybe know personally. It's from around 19 years ago, and it's the retired U.S. Army general and former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Wesley Clark during actually a Democracy Now! Interview, but it's very relevant today. I mean, I hope it's not relevant, but I think it is. So let's take a listen.
9/11. About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
What are your thoughts on this?
Watch what alcohol does to stuck poop.
See this sharp turn right here?
Well, I was privy to his briefing when he came back to the State Department, right after he'd been summarily relieved, really, by Bill Clinton. It wasn't broadcast that way, but he was. And I knew how he had come to that circumstance, and I knew that people were very, very angry with him who had led him to that circumstance. And that's a different story. But I know what he's saying there is accurate because I got kicked out of the Pentagon as Powell's policy planning member, putting together joint talks between the Joint Staff and the State Department's policy planning staff. We had 3 meetings, and then Rumsfeld found out about us and kicked us out. The military guys were very alarmed that we'd been kicked out because it ended all coordination between the 2 most important cabinet offices for national security in the administration. And the reason I was kicked out was because I was inadvertently shown what Wes Clark just said. Wow. The other thing I was shown was Mossad investing the number 3 man in the Pentagon, Douglas Feith, Undersecretary for Policy's office. Read Dennis Fritz's book, Deadly Betrayal, and you'll see exactly why that happened. They occupied his office virtually 24/7. And they occupied it throughout and gave instructions to Jerry Bremer and others in Baghdad, the war. So, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's just reality. And Rumsfeld once actually, I'm told, I didn't hear him, but it was from a good source, came out of his office one day in frustration, slammed some papers down and said, "I don't run this office, Mossad does."
Wow.